The stars had never looked so empty. Commander Daniel Hayes stood at the observation window of the deep space exploration vessel, Starbound Hope, staring into the black void of the Andromeda sector. They had been out here for 18 months, charting new systems, collecting data, and finding nothing but rocks and gas giants. No life, no signals, no proof that humanity was anything but alone in the universe. Daniel was a tall man with tired eyes and graying hair at his temples. He had joined the Space Exploration Corps 20 years ago, full of hope and wonder. Now, at 45, he was starting to believe that the universe was just too big and too empty for anyone to find anything meaningful. The door behind him slid open with a soft hiss. Lieutenant Katie Moore walked in, her boots clicking against the metal floor. She was young, barely 30, with short brown hair and sharp eyes that never missed a detail. She was the best communications officer Daniel had ever worked with. "Commander," she said, her voice carrying an unusual edge of excitement, "you need to come to the bridge, now." Daniel turned to look at her. In 18 months, Katie had never sounded like this. "What is it?" "A signal, sir. We picked up a signal." Daniel felt his heart jump in his chest, but he kept his face calm. False alarms happened all the time. Pulsars, distant radio sources, even their own equipment bouncing signals off space debris. "What kind of signal?" Katie shook her head slowly. "Nothing natural. It's structured, repeating. And sir," she paused, as if she could not believe her own words, "parts of it are in a language our computer can translate. But the encryption, it's like nothing we've ever seen." Daniel moved before he even realized it, walking past Katie and heading straight for the bridge. His crew of 42 people had been handpicked for this mission. They were scientists, engineers, and explorers. None of them had signed up for first contact. The bridge was a wide circular room filled with screens and control panels. Sam Bradley, the chief engineer, was already there, leaning over Katie's station with a deep frown on his weathered face. Sam was in his 50s, a heavyset man with thick arms and a bald head. He had built half the ship's systems with his own hands. Dr. Laura Grant stood nearby, her arms crossed over her chest. She was the ship's science officer, a slim woman with glasses and long red hair tied back in a ponytail. She had 3 degrees in alien biology and had spent her entire career preparing for a moment that everyone told her would never come. "Play it," Daniel ordered. Katie tapped the controls, and the bridge filled with sound. It was strange, a series of clicks, hums, and tones that rose and fell in complex patterns. But underneath it all, there was something that sounded almost like language, almost like words. The computer managed to translate about 12% of it, Katie explained. "The rest is encrypted beyond anything we can crack. But what we got, sir, it's coordinates and a time stamp." Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. "Coordinates to where?" Lavra stepped forward, pulling up a star map on the main screen. A red dot blinked in empty space, about 3 days' travel from their current position. "Here, there's nothing there according to our maps. No planets, no stations, no debris fields. Just empty space." "The time stamp," Sam said quietly, "is 2 weeks from now. Whatever this signal is about, it's happening soon." Daniel stared at the map. Every protocol in the book said they should report this to Earth Command and wait for instructions. But Earth was months away by communication relay. By the time they got orders, whatever was happening at those coordinates would be long over. "It could be a trap," Lavra said carefully. "We have no idea who sent this or why." "It could also be first contact," Katie replied. "Real first contact. Someone out there is trying to communicate." Daniel thought about his 20 years in space. 20 years of empty systems and dead worlds. 20 years of wondering if humanity was alone. He made his decision. Set a course for those coordinates, he ordered. We'll observe from a safe distance. If it looks dangerous, we leave. But we're not going to ignore this. The crew exchanged glances, but no one argued. They had all dreamed of this moment, even if none of them had ever truly believed it would come. For 3 days, the Starbound Hope traveled through the darkness. The closer they got to the coordinates, the more nervous the crew became. Daniel barely slept. He spent his nights reviewing the signal, listening to it over and over, trying to find meaning in the alien sounds. When they finally arrived, they found exactly what their maps had promised. Nothing. Empty space stretched in every direction. Stars glittered in the distance, but there was no station, no ship, no sign of life. Sensors shown nothing, Sam reported, confusion clear in his voice. No heat signatures, no energy readings, no mass. We're completely alone out here. Daniel frowned. Then, why would someone send coordinates to? He never finished his sentence. The ship lurched violently to one side, throwing everyone off their feet. Alarms screamed throughout the bridge. What the hell was that? Daniel shouted, pulling himself back to his feet. Katie's face had gone pale. Commander, something just appeared on our sensors. Something big. The main screen flickered, and then they saw it. A space station materialized out of nothing, as if a curtain had been pulled away to reveal what had been hidden behind it. The station was massive, larger than any human structure Daniel had ever seen. It was shaped like a vast ring, with towers and spires reaching out in every direction. Lights glowed along its surface, pulsing with an energy that felt ancient and powerful. That's impossible, Lawver whispered. It was cloaked, completely invisible to our sensors. Before anyone could respond, the ship shook again. This time, Daniel recognized the feeling. They were caught in a tractor beam, being pulled toward the station against their will. Full reverse. Daniel ordered, "Get us out of here." Sam's hands flew across the controls, but it was no use. The beam was too strong. The Starbound Hope was being dragged forward like a toy on a string. "I'm sorry, Commander," Sam said grimly. "We're not going anywhere." Daniel watched as the station grew larger and larger in the view screen. Massive doors began to open on its surface, revealing a dark hangar bay inside. They were being swallowed whole. He looked at his crew, at Katie, at Sam, at Laura, at all the others who had trusted him to lead them through the stars. He had no idea what waited for them inside that station. But he knew one thing for certain. Nothing would ever be the same again. The Starbound Hope disappeared into the darkness, and the station's doors closed behind them with a sound like the end of the world. The hangar bay was silent. The Starbound Hope sat in the center of the massive space, surrounded by ships of designs that no human had ever imagined. Some were sleek and silver, shaped like arrows. Others were organic, covered in what looked like scales or shells. A few seemed to be made entirely of light, their forms shifting and changing as Daniel watched. His crew stood at the windows, staring in disbelief. Whatever doubts anyone had about alien life were gone now. They were clearly not alone in the universe. Not even close. "I counted at least 30 different ship designs," Laura said softly, her scientific mind already trying to categorize what she was seeing. 30 different species, minimum. Maybe more. "The question is," Sam muttered, "are they friendly?" As if in answer, a section of the hangar wall slid open. A group of figures emerged, tall, thin beings with gray skin and 4 arms. They wore uniforms of deep blue and carried devices that looked uncomfortably like weapons. Daniel straightened his shoulders. "Everyone stay calm. Let me do the talking." The gray beings approached the ship and stopped at the main airlock. One of them pressed a device against the hull. A moment later, Daniel heard a voice in his mind, not through his ears, but directly in his thoughts. "You will come with us." Do not resist. Resistance will result in termination. Daniel felt his crew tense around him. He raised his hand slowly, showing he was unarmed. Open the airlock, he ordered quietly. We cooperate. For now, they were led through corridors that seemed to go on forever. The walls were smooth and white, lit by a soft glow that came from everywhere and nowhere. Other aliens passed them occasionally, beings of every shape and size, some walking, some floating, some moving in ways that hurt Daniel's eyes to watch. Finally, they reached a large circular door. The gray beings pushed them through, and Daniel found himself in a holding chamber. The walls were transparent, like glass, but stronger. Beyond the walls, he could see a vast amphitheater stretching out below them. Hundreds of aliens were gathered in the amphitheater, seated in sections according to their species. At the center was a raised platform where several figures stood. These were clearly the leaders, older, more decorated, carrying an air of authority that transcended species. A small device attached itself to the wall near Daniel's head. It hummed for a moment, and then he could understand every word being spoken in the amphitheater below. The emergency session of the Galactic Council is now in order, announced a towering, crystalline being whose body sparkled with inner light. Elder Varth presiding. Daniel's eyes went wide. Galactic Council. These weren't just aliens. This was a government that apparently ruled the entire galaxy. The matter before us today is the species known as humans, from the planet designated Earth in the Orion sector. Elder Varth continued. His voice was deep and cold, like wind through a cave. As all members are aware, humans have been under observation since they first achieved sentience, approximately 200,000 years ago. Katie grabbed Daniel's arm. 200,000 years, she whispered. They've been watching us for 200,000 years. They were classified as a Class 7 species, Varth went on. Primitive, violent, self-destructive, our projections indicated. A 97% probability that they would destroy themselves before achieving interstellar travel. They were not considered a threat. A murmur ran through the amphitheater. Daniel could feel the weight of countless alien eyes, even though he knew most of them were focused on the council floor. Not on him. The projections were wrong, Varth said, and there was anger in his voice now. Not only did humans survive, they advanced at a rate unprecedented in galactic history. In just 10,000 years, they went from basic agriculture to nuclear power. In another century, they achieved spaceflight. Now, they have begun to expand beyond their home system. Another figure stepped forward, a being made of flowing liquid metal that constantly shifted and reformed. The question before this council is simple. What do we do about the human anomaly? Anomaly? Daniel muttered under his breath. They call us an anomaly? Laura was listening intently, her face pale. Daniel, I think I understand now. This council doesn't just observe. They control. They've been controlling the development of every species in the galaxy. As if to confirm her words, a new speaker rose. This one was a small insectoid creature with multiple eyes and delicate wings. Its voice was high and fast. The standard protocol for unpredicted species advancement is intervention, the insect being said. We guide them. We limit them. We ensure they do not disrupt the galactic order. But humans are different. They do not respond to guidance. They question everything. They refuse to accept limits. That is because they are dangerous, Elder Varth declared. They spread like a disease. They adapt to any environment. They fight wars over ideas, not just resources. They are unpredictable, irrational, and utterly impossible to control. Daniel felt a strange mix of fear and pride rising in his chest. These beings, these ancient, powerful beings who had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, were afraid of humanity, afraid of what humans could become. There are two options before us. Varth announced, silencing the murmurs. Option 1. We reveal ourselves to humanity and offer them membership in the Galactic Council, under strict supervision and control. We limit their expansion, monitor their development, and ensure they never become a threat. The liquid metal being spoke again. And option 2? Varth's crystalline form flickered with dark light. Option 2 is Protocol 17. We eliminate the human species before they become too powerful to stop. A controlled extinction event. A meteor strike, a plague, a series of natural disasters. Within a generation, humanity would be gone, and the galaxy would be safe. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued for mercy, others for destruction. Daniel watched in horror as aliens he had never met discussed whether his entire species should live or die. Katie moved to the corner of the holding chamber, her hands working quickly on a small device she had hidden in her sleeve. Daniel noticed but said nothing. "What are you doing?" Sam whispered. "Sending a message?" Katie replied, her voice barely audible. "Back to human space. They need to know what's happening here. They need to know we're not alone and we're not safe." She pressed a final button, and a tiny burst of energy shot out from the device, passing through the transparent walls and disappearing into the station. Whether it would reach home, none of them knew. But it was all they could do. Daniel turned back to watch the council argue over humanity's fate. He did not know how this would end, but he knew one thing. Humanity had survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. They had climbed out of caves and reached the stars. They would not go quietly into extinction. Not now. Not ever. Hours passed in the holding chamber. The council continued to debate below, their arguments growing more heated as time went on. Daniel and his crew watched in silence, learning more about the galaxy, with each passing minute than humanity had discovered in centuries of exploration. Dr. Laura Grant sat in the corner, her eyes closed, her mind working through everything she had heard. She was a scientist, trained to analyze data and find patterns. And she was starting to see a pattern here that terrified her. "Daniel," she said finally, "I need to tell you something." Daniel moved closer, keeping his voice low. "What is it?" "I've been listening to their arguments, and I think I understand what this council really is." Lavra opened her eyes, and there was fear in them. They don't just govern the galaxy. They engineer it. Every species, every civilization, every war and peace treaty, it's all been planned, controlled, directed. "What do you mean, directed?" Lavra pointed down at the amphitheater. "Listen to how they talk about other species. They use words like guided and managed. They mention adjusting development, timelines, and correcting evolutionary paths. Daniel, they've been playing God with the entire galaxy for tens of thousands of years." Sam, who had been listening nearby, let out a low curse. "You're saying everything out there, every alien civilization, has been controlled by these people?" "Not just controlled," Lavra said. "Contained. They decide how fast a species can advance. They limit technologies. They start wars when a species gets too powerful, and they end wars when they need stability. The entire galactic order is artificial. A system designed to keep any single species from becoming dominant." Daniel felt sick. And humanity was supposed to be part of this system? "More than that," Lavra replied. "We were supposed to be eliminated before we ever became a factor. Think about it. They said their projections showed a 97% chance we'd destroy ourselves. The projections don't just happen. They make them happen. Nuclear wars, environmental collapse, pandemics. How many of those were natural, and how many were engineered?" Before Daniel could respond, a new voice echoed through the chamber. But this one was different. It did not come from the translator device. It came from the shadows at the edge of their cell. "You are correct. Human? More correct than you know. Everyone spun around. A small figure stepped out of the darkness, an insectoid being with multiple eyes and delicate wings. Daniel recognized it as the same creature who had spoken in the council chamber earlier. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded. "How did you get in here?" "My name is Chirik," the insect said. Its voice was softer now, less formal. "I am a scientist, like your Dr. Grant, and I am here because I need your help." Sam stepped forward protectively. "Why should we trust you? Your council is down there deciding whether to kill our entire species." "It is not my council," Chirik replied. "I have served them for 300 years, but I have never agreed with their methods. What they call order, I call tyranny. What they call stability, I call stagnation." Katie narrowed her eyes. "You're the one who sabotaged the barrier." Chirik's multiple eyes blinked in surprise. "You heard that?" "Yes. 400 years ago, I was assigned to maintain the containment field around your solar system. A barrier that would have prevented humanity from ever leaving Earth. But I saw your species. I watched you. And I knew the council was wrong about you." "Wrong how?" Daniel asked. "They saw your violence and your chaos and called it dangerous," Chirik explained. "But I saw something else. I saw creativity, adaptation, a species that refused to accept limits. Every time you faced extinction, you found a way to survive. Every time you hit a wall, you found a way through it. You were not a threat to be contained. You were a miracle to be celebrated." Chirik moved closer, its wings folding against its back. "So I sabotaged the barrier. I created a small gap, just enough for your ships to pass through without being detected. I thought if humanity could reach the stars, if you could prove yourselves to the galaxy, the council would have no choice but to accept you. But they didn't," Lara said quietly. "No. Instead, they have become more afraid than ever. Your rapid expansion, your unpredictable nature, your refusal to follow the paths they laid out, it has convinced many on the council that you are too dangerous to live." Daniel stepped forward until he was face to face with Chirik. "So why are you here? What do you want from us?" "I want to save your species," Chirik said simply. "And I want to save the galaxy from the council's control. But I cannot do it alone." "How?" Daniel asked. "We're trapped in here. Our ship is captured. We have no weapons, no allies, no power." Chirik's eyes glittered. "You have something more powerful than weapons. You have the truth. The council has controlled the galaxy through secrecy and manipulation for 50,000 years. But what happens if that secret is exposed? What happens if every species in the galaxy learns that their wars were engineered, their development was limited, their freedom was stolen?" "Rebellion," Sam said slowly. "There would be rebellion." "Exactly. Many species have lived under the council's rule without ever knowing they were being controlled. If they learned the truth, the council's power would collapse. And humanity, the species that refused to be contained, would be the ones who freed them all." Daniel looked at his crew. They were exhausted, frightened, and far from home. But in their eyes, he saw something that the council had never understood about humans. He saw determination. He saw the refusal to give up. "What do you need us to do?" He asked Chirik. "There is a central broadcast hub in the heart of the station," Chirik explained. "From there, you can transmit to every world in the galaxy. If you can reach it, if you can broadcast everything you have seen and heard here today, you will change history. And the council will try to stop us," Katie said. "Yes, they will do everything in their power to stop you. But I have studied your species for centuries. I know what you are capable of. If anyone can do this, it is you." Daniel took a deep breath. He thought about Earth, about the billions of people who had no idea that their fate was being decided by aliens they had never met. He thought about every human who had ever fought against impossible odds and won. "Tell us how to get to the broadcast hub," Daniel said. "We'll take it from there." Chiric's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "I was hoping you would say that." Admiral Ryan Cole stood in the command center of Earth's orbital defense platform, staring at the message on his screen. The transmission had arrived fragmented and corrupted, bouncing through relay stations across half the galaxy before reaching home. Most of it was static, but the parts that came through clearly were enough to change everything. Galactic Council. Humans under observation. Protocol 17. Extinction. Ryan was 60 years old, a career military man who had spent his life preparing for threats that never came. Now, the threat was here, and it was bigger than anything humanity had ever imagined. His aide, a young officer named Peter Walsh, stood nervously nearby. "Sir, are we sure this message is authentic? It could be a hoax or some kind of test." "It came from the Starbound Hope," Ryan replied, his voice heavy. "Lieutenant Moore's authorization codes are genuine. Whatever Commander Hayes and his crew found out there, they thought it was important enough to risk everything to send this to us. But aliens? A galactic government? Planned extinction?" Peter shook his head. "It sounds impossible. So did flight once. So did nuclear power. So did faster-than-light travel." Ryan turned to face his aide. "The impossible is just something we haven't done yet. Now it's time to prepare for it." He walked to the main console and activated the emergency channel. Within seconds, his face appeared on screens across the planet in government offices, military bases, and colony stations throughout human space. "This is Admiral Cole declaring a Code Omega alert. All military personnel report to stations immediately. All civilian ships are to return to protected space. This is not a drill." The effect was immediate. Across Earth and its colonies, humanity began to move. Ships launched, weapons powered up, and defense grids activated. In a matter of hours, the human species had transformed from peaceful explorers to a civilization preparing for war. But Ryan knew that preparation alone would not be enough. They needed information. They needed allies. And most importantly, they needed to find out what had happened to the Starbound Hope. Meanwhile, far across the galaxy, Daniel and his crew were preparing for their own battle. Chirag had provided them with a map of the station and a small device that would temporarily disable the security systems in their path. The plan was simple: reach the central broadcast hub, transmit everything they had learned, and hope that the galaxy would listen. The reality was far more complicated. "There are guards at every major intersection," Sam reported, studying the map. "We'll have to go through the maintenance tunnels to avoid most of them." "The tunnels will take longer," Katie pointed out. "And we don't know how much time we have before the council makes their decision." "We don't have a choice," Daniel said. "We can't fight our way through an entire alien station. Stealth is our only option." Lavra had been quiet, thinking. "What about the other species?" Chirag said many of them don't agree with the council's methods. "Could we find allies inside the station?" "Too risky," Daniel replied. "We don't know who to trust. For now, we move alone." Chirag opened the hidden panel in the wall of their cell, revealing a narrow passage beyond. "This will take you to the maintenance level. From there, you can access the tunnels that run throughout the station. The broadcast hub is in the central core, approximately 3 kilometers from here." 3 kilometers through hostile territory, Sam muttered. "Should be fun." Daniel turned to his crew. There were 42 of them in total, but most were scientists and technicians, not soldiers. He could not ask all of them to come. "I need volunteers," he said. "This is going to be dangerous. Maybe suicidal. Anyone who wants to stay here, I understand." No one moved. Not a single person stepped back. Katie smiled slightly. "We didn't come this far to give up now, Commander." Daniel felt a surge of pride. These were humans at their best, facing impossible odds with courage and determination. "All right, let's move." They entered the tunnels one by one, moving in single file through the narrow passages. The walls were lined with pipes and cables that hummed with alien energy. Strange symbols marked the surfaces, written in languages that humanity had never seen. For 2 hours, they crept through the darkness. Twice, they had to hide as patrols passed overhead. Once, a security drone nearly spotted them before Sam disabled it with a burst from Chiric's device. Finally, they reached a junction where the tunnels opened into a larger chamber. Through the grating beneath their feet, they could see the broadcast hub below, a massive room filled with equipment and screens, all centered around a single towering antenna that reached up into the station's core. "That's it," Chirik said quietly. "From that antenna, you can reach every inhabited world in the galaxy. How do we operate it?" Katie asked. "The technology is completely alien. The principles are the same," Sam said, studying the equipment below. "Energy input, signal modulation, transmission array. Different design, but I can figure it out." Daniel nodded. "Then we go. Fast and quiet. Katie, you handle the broadcast content. Sam, get the system working. Everyone else, watch our backs." They dropped down from the tunnels, landing in the broadcast hub with barely a sound. The room was empty. The council's attention was still focused on their debate. They had maybe minutes before someone noticed them. Sam immediately went to work, his hands flying over alien controls that somehow made sense to his engineer's mind. Katie pulled up the recording device that had captured everything they had seen and heard since their capture. "Got it," Sam announced. "The system is online, ready to transmit." Daniel moved to the main console. In a few moments, his voice would reach billions of beings across thousands of worlds. He had no idea what to say. Then he thought about Earth, about the people back home who were probably scared and confused, preparing for a threat they did not understand. He thought about every human who had ever looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. He began to speak. "My name is Commander Daniel Hayes of the Human Exploration. Vessel Starbound Hope. I am broadcasting from a station that most of the galaxy does not know exists, the home of the Galactic Council, a secret government that has controlled your species and your history for thousands of years." The words flowed out of him, carrying the truth that the Council had hidden for so long. He told them about the manipulation, the containment, the planned extinctions. He told them about Protocol 17 and the threat to humanity. And he told them that it was time for the truth to set them all free. Somewhere in the station, alarms began to sound. "They know we're here," Sam said urgently. "Transmission is still going, but we've got company incoming." Daniel kept talking, pouring everything into his message as the sound of running footsteps grew closer. He did not know if they would survive the next few minutes, but he knew that his words would echo across the galaxy forever. The truth was out, and nothing would ever be the same. The doors to the broadcast hub exploded inward. Gray-skinned guards poured through, their weapons raised, their forearms moving with deadly precision. Behind them came soldiers of other species, tall reptilians with armored scales, floating spheres crackling with energy, and things that Daniel could not even begin to describe. "Keep the transmission going," Daniel shouted. "No matter what happens." Sam stayed at the controls, his hands never stopping even as chaos erupted around him. Katie stood beside him, feeding more data into the system recordings, sensor logs, everything they had gathered since their capture. The rest of the crew formed a defensive line, using whatever they could find as cover. They had no weapons, no training for this kind of fight, But they were human, and humans had always found ways to survive. One of the floating spheres discharged a bolt of energy towards Sam. Lavra threw herself in front of him, knocking him aside just in time. The bolt struck a console instead, sending sparks flying across the room. "Transmission at 70%, Sam reported, pulling himself back to his feet. "We need more time." Daniel grabbed the fallen piece of equipment and swung it at an approaching guard. The blow connected, sending the alien stumbling backward. Another guard took its place immediately. They were going to be overwhelmed. Daniel knew it. They could not hold this position much longer. But every second they bought meant more of the truth reaching more worlds. Every moment mattered. Then something unexpected happened. A new group burst into the room, but they were not Council forces. Daniel recognized species from the Council chamber, but these were different. Their uniforms were torn, their expressions determined. They were fighting against the Council guards. "What's happening?" Katie shouted over the noise. Chirrut appeared beside them, wings buzzing with excitement. "Your message is working. Species across the station have heard the truth. They are rising up against the Council." Daniel watched in amazement as aliens who had been enemies for centuries fought side by side against their common oppressor. The Council's control was crumbling in real time, brought down by the simple power of truth. "Transmission complete," Sam announced. "It's out there. Every world in the galaxy just received everything we recorded. Then, we need to leave," Daniel said. "Now, while there's still chaos." Chirrut led them through the battle, weaving between fights and dodging energy blasts. The station itself seemed to be falling apart. Explosions rocked the corridors. Emergency lights flashed red. The Council's perfect order was descending into beautiful chaos. They reached the hangar bay to find it transformed. Ships were launching in every direction. Some were fleeing. Others were fighting. In the center of it all, the Starbound Hope sat untouched, protected by a group of insectoid beings who looked like Chirrut. "My people," Chirrut explained as they ran toward the ship. "Not all of us believed in the Council's ways. We've been waiting for this moment for a very long time." Daniel turned to the small alien who had risked everything to help them. "Come with us. You'll be safe on Earth." Chirrut's multiple eyes sparkled. "Thank you, but my place is here. Someone must ensure this revolution succeeds. Someone must build something better from the ashes of the old order." The insect extended one delicate limb toward Daniel. "But know this: humanity will always have friends among the stars. You have given us the gift of truth. We will not forget." Daniel took the offered limb and shook it gently. "Neither will we." The crew boarded the Starbound Hope. Sam rushed to the engineering section, bringing the engines online. Katie took her place at communications, already picking up transmissions from across the galaxy, confused, excited, angry, hopeful. "The whole galaxy is talking about us," she reported. "Some species are calling for humanity's destruction. But others are thanking us. They're calling us liberators." Daniel settled into the command chair. "Let's not stay around to see which side wins this debate. Set course for Earth, maximum speed." The Starbound Hope launched from the hangar bay, dodging debris and crossfire as it escaped the dying station. Behind them, the great ring structure that had controlled the galaxy for 50,000 years began to tear itself apart. Destroyed not by weapons, but by the truth it could no longer contain. They were halfway home when the message from Earth reached them. Admiral Cole's face appeared on the screen, lined with exhaustion but bright with something that looked like hope. "Commander Hayes, I don't know how you did what you did, but the entire human race owes you a debt we can never repay." "How are things on Earth?" Daniel asked. "Complicated," Cole admitted. "Half the population is terrified. The other half is excited. Everyone is arguing about what this means for our future. But one thing is certain, we're not alone anymore, and we're not hiding anymore. Daniel smiled wearily. What happens now? Now we prepare. We build. We make allies where we can, and prepare for enemies where we must. The galaxy knows about humanity now. We need to show them what we're made of. The transmission ended, and Daniel leaned back in his chair. Through the viewport, he could see the stars stretching out before them, vast and full of mystery. Somewhere out there, civilizations were waking up to a new reality. Species that had been controlled were discovering their freedom. And at the center of it all was humanity, the anomaly, the unpredictable variable. The species that refused to stay contained. Katie appeared beside him. You know, this is just the beginning, right? The Council might be weakened, but they're not destroyed. There will be factions who want revenge. Species who blame us for the chaos. Wars we can't even imagine yet. I know, Daniel said. But we've faced impossible odds before and won. That's what we do. We survive. We adapt. We keep moving forward no matter what the universe throws at us. The Council couldn't understand that, Katie said quietly. They couldn't understand why we never gave up. Why we kept fighting even when we had no chance of winning. Daniel thought about Elder Varath's words, about humanity being unpredictable, irrational, impossible to control. The crystalline being had meant it as an accusation. But Daniel understood now that it was actually humanity's greatest strength. No, he agreed. They couldn't, and that's why we won. Weeks later, Daniel stood before the United Earth Assembly, the gathered representatives of every human colony hanging on his every word. He told them everything: the Council, the containment, the planned extinction, and the revolution that had begun with a single broadcast. When he finished, Admiral Cole stepped forward to address the assembly. They tried to keep us contained, Cole said, his voice ringing through the chamber. They thought they could control our destiny and our story before it truly began. They were wrong. Today, we don't just survive. Today, we rise. And the galaxy will never forget the day humanity woke up. The assembly erupted in cheers. Across Earth and its colonies, billions of humans looked up at the stars with new eyes. They were no longer alone. They were no longer afraid. They were free. And they were just getting started.